Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Okay, so today's video, we are reviewing the new album by, was it Grief Symposium? It is In the Absence of Light. What's the kind of general, what's the genre? What was it listed as?
Yeah, so just give you some background. You'll see we've all got notes for this one because it's quite a long album, and we won't be doing you a good service just by trying to think off the top of our head what we remember from it.
That's my normal way of doing it.
Yeah. So this is it's I suppose the nearest genre would be Death Doom, but as you'll find out when we review it, I don't think we will see it as just a one-dimensional album. And it's released on Church Road Records, which is the label founded by Sammy Unwin and Justin of the band Employed to Serve, legends of UK metal, the up-and-coming label in the metal scene as well. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to cover this.
Okay. How do you know all this? Do you ever actually sleep? Do you just sit there with like books and just like research?
I'm going to throw that back on you. How do you not know Employed to Serve? They won, Kerrang awarded them Album of the Year in 2016.
Yeah, I don't read Kerrang.
I know, but it's still an accolade, isn't it?
I'm not one of their 15 subscribers that read magazines anymore.
I certainly was reading Kerrang in 2016. I've heard the band, but
yeah,
again, Employed to Serve. It's not going to say, oh, they sound good. I'm going to check them out. So, sorry.
Sorry, Employed to Serve.
Go and watch them support Gojira in March. Right, so.
I think you go last because you're the fountain of knowledge of all things metal, so you can tell us if we're wrong. But I think, Andy, you can kick this one off with Grief Symposium. What did you think?
The age that I am and the amount of time I've been listening to metal, it's very, very rare that I listen to a band, an album that I've never heard before, and I'm blown away almost immediately. This was really, really good. I absolutely loved it. So much so, I'll spoil the rating at the end. I've already pre-ordered the CD. That is how much I like this album. I mean, I would say it's Death Doom. You know, Kirk, you've got a broader knowledge of the genres and the sub-genres, but this is Death Doom. You know, as far as I'm concerned, it's got everything, you know, that I'm looking for in an album from that genre. You know, it's got sorrowful vocals, you know, single note melodies. You know, the vocals are agonised at times. You know, it's absolutely brilliant. There's faster passages as well. You know, it's so heavy, it's so down-tuned. It reminds me, or you know, certain songs and certain passages reminded me of the what I would describe the very early My Dying Bride. You know, the demos from you know the songs from Towards the Sinister, and you know tracks like God Is Alone and Desart Soliloquy. You know, the sort of the tracks they stuck on the Symposium EP right at the very beginning of their career. Yes, I mean it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, there's melodic passages there, harmonisations, pummeling riffs. You know, some that really get your head nodding. It's you know one of the best albums, you know, debut albums or first time listen to a band I've heard in many years. And if you like your Death Doom, if you like Doom, I'd recommend this album, absolutely.
Okay, so the guy that hates Doom.
We're not expecting a good review here. Are you going to surprise us?
Okay, so I have to be honest, when I started listening to it, I was like, oh, for Christ's sake, it's not another bloody Doom band. And that was just generally, I was listening to it thinking, I'm not going to like this. Then it got to about 2 minutes in, and I was like, okay, there's a change here. Wasn't expecting it, went a bit more melodic death metal in style for me. So I kind of got into that actually as the song got as the actual album progressed. I was really surprised at how it didn't just lean on the Doom elements. It really liked to explore other genres and not just like death as well. So I felt there was some groove metal elements in there, some very cool gothic elements. Looking at like the first track that came in there, very tight rhythmical elements going in there. So even though it's Doom and it's sludgy and it's slow, the fact that the drums and the guitars were just locked with each other the whole way through, it wasn't like they were loose. The guitars were just, the drums were playing their own thing and the guitars were just doing big open chords. They were dun, 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 dun. And the guitars and everything was
quite
just
dramatic.
Perfectly.
Yeah.
Very dramatic, really tight. Temple of Decay was a great solid metal track. I felt there was some Paradise Lost elements in this album, which I enjoyed. In the Shadow of Sleeping Monarch, I loved dramatic intro, cool riff. I love the high energy, and then into this really cool female eerie vocal part, which I thought that caught me off guard as well. Did find that as we got further into the album, I was feeling it getting a little bit too samey for me. But then this isn't a genre that I'm a big fan of, so I did find that my energy level started to go as the albums. And I think that's something we found more recently. With a lot of albums we've talked about, we do find that you're getting into these track 6s, track 7s of an album, and you're starting to flag. And then maybe that's because we don't, as a whole, listen to whole albums anymore, really. We're kind of a bit culture where we like to listen to a few songs and then we're off doing something else, and then we come and listen back to some music that maybe not in your case, you go for 4-hour walks and listen to albums, but for someone like me, I wouldn't listen to 9-10 songs back to back. It's just not in my nature to do that. And then of course we have the final track, the closer.
The contentious part of the
interest album. Was it? Well, how many minutes was it?
18 minutes long.
And to be honest, that one caught me off guard. But what was weird was I actually listened to it without. I started doing some other stuff on the computer while I was doing some editing work, and I had it playing, and it didn't feel like 18 minutes. It felt very interesting, and it worked really well. It did work really well as a background piece. It wasn't something I would sit there for 18 minutes and listen to.
I agree. I didn't think it was 18 minutes. You know, there's not a lot of variation within the piece of passage of music that it is, but I felt it was not as long as 18 minutes.
Am I right in thinking surely that's Aaron Stainthorpe doing the spoken word?
I think it is.
His voice is unmistakable, because when you listen to Avinta, I know his accent, and that has to be him, or somebody doing a fantastic impression. Yeah. So you picked up on that.
I've got Aaron noted down, but I think it's him.
Yeah.
Well, so we could.
They're secretive though. They haven't confirmed it.
Interesting. Well, that was my thoughts on it. What about you?
Just before we move on, Dave, I mean, some elements that I did pick up on in my review is I said it's had everything, and you touched on a couple of sort of segments as well. There's clean vocals, there's whispered vocals, there's the female vocals. You know, this album has got every element that a Doom Death fan would wish for in an album. Is really good.
Yeah, it's so heavy, isn't it? I think that's what shocked me, just how heavy it was. And you said that the guitars are down tuned. I think they're using a pitch shifter effect on those guitars. They are so low in the mix. But you know what stood out for me, which is unusual for a Death Doom band? There is nothing sludgy about that guitar tone. If anything, dirty word that it is, they're almost using some gent techniques in there. They are like, Meshuggah, Black Crown Initiate, where the bottom strings, the floppiness you get from a super down-tuned guitar, and those dexterous finger movements that they're doing, they really squirm through the amps, don't they? And you've got the occasional caveman downstrokes, which are just so heavy, you almost have to take your headphones off. But yeah, just to mention some of the songs then, and pick up, especially Dave, on what you said about that track number 3, which is 9 minutes, which is In the Shadow of the Sleeping Monarch. I just did not expect it to end like Dead Can Dance and All About Eve, where you've got these really esoteric, beautiful female harmonies. You know, you've got 6 minutes of pure brutality. And even on most songs, did you find, to me, these seem more like a death metal band with occasional elements of doom, rather than a doom metal band using death metal vocals. Too much Death Doom is just that, you know, it's almost stoner metal with harsh vocals. This is really, I would say, modern death metal, absolutely brutal, and it just alternates tempos and does have some extended doom passages.
I would never have called it a doom album. I think there was just doom elements. I don't even think I'd call it a death album, because I don't think it. I take death metal as a lot more extreme. It was heavy. This album was very heavy, but it didn't make me. Whenever I hear a lot of death metal, I'm just saturated of like a high level of energy. Always constantly hitting. This seemed like a real interesting mix of multiple genres, and they kind of almost come up with their own genre in their own sort of sense. Because I couldn't put it as death. I couldn't call it melodic death. But as I said, there was groove elements in there.
Yeah.
There was some interesting kind of. I'm trying to remember if it was. Fairly certain it was on this album, but there was points where it almost went kind of gallopy at points on some riffs, and you're like, when does death metal bands start doing galloping drum beats? That would be more accustomed to a new wave of British heavy metal band. So there were so many different elements they pulled in, but none of them seemed out of place. They all worked really well in the concept of the album.
Yeah, the band's our viewers are going to want some reference points, aren't they? So what influences could we pick out? Certainly Immolation for the death metal side of things. Celtic Frost, that 2006 album, Monotheist. No, it definitely had the guitar tone. The debut Triptych album, you knew that was coming. Can I just say, it is in the press release, they even cite Celtic Frost as an influence. I definitely picked up on it. Bolt Thrower. Andy, did you pick up, like that, those Once Loyal era Bolt Thrower on some of the down-tuned grooves and faster riffs? I've definitely heard that in the mix. And do you know what? Not just My Dying Bride, Anathema. In some of those more introspective, celestial passages of music, I certainly heard Anathema at all stages of their career, because obviously Anathema started, don't they, as a gothic doom band and then completely transform into something that's 360 degrees on its head, but still dark. And they definitely did encapsulate some of that. I mean, to me, there are, like, for example, you mentioned Temple of Decay. There's another song on here, Veil of Transformation. That is just 3 minutes of pure death metal.
I was just going to say, please tell me that is not your notes for the review today.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, public main riff for Veil of Transformation, which I think is, that's one of the only 2 tracks on Spotify. So that's sort of like the lead single, I guess. Yeah. And as you say, 3 minutes is it's a nice introduction to the band, rather than sort of getting involved in a lengthy 9-minute affair.
Yeah, I mean, the phrasing of the album, or should we say the structuring, is really clever, isn't it? Because you start with, a 6-minute song, Among Dead Gods. Then you go straight into that Temple of Decay, 3 minutes, 57, pure death metal. I think we agree, don't we? Our favourite song is that In the Shadow of the Sleeping Monarch, 9 minutes. But then after that, they go straight into another almost like Pig Destroyer type song, because it's so fast and brutal, but just so down-tuned as well. But I better just address it as well. We've mentioned it. The last track, the 18 minutes of the Amber Kiss of the Sun. At first, it put me off. I was thinking, right, I've got to this point. I love this album. Why are you doing this to me? And then I've listened to it 3 times, the album in its entirety, and I'm now thinking, right, the first 6 tracks are CD1, and track number 7's like a CD2 bonus track. So you don't feel bad if you don't listen to it. It's not essential. You can actually split it apart from the rest of the album.
I think the thing is, you're waiting when that song kicks in, you're waiting for the doom elements or a death element. You're waiting for it to change to what you're expecting, and it never does. It just goes off and does its own thing, completely separate to what else for everything else.
Interpretation of Tangerine Dream, that German synth band. Really ambient. Yeah.
We've referenced My Dying Bride and Aaron Stainthorpe. That closing track reminded me of Black God and
yes, that's
what's the other one,
isn't it?
Angel. Anyway, they're both sort of closing tracks on My Dying Bride albums, where Aaron's doing spoken vocals throughout, and it's sort of almost just it's either just the piano or the violin, just one sort of instrument providing the background, with Aaron sort of relaying the story. So that's what that track reminded me of. So they're obviously very influenced by My Dying Bride, and we are convinced he's on it. He's letting a hand on that closing track.
Because this band are from East Anglia, so we should have said that at the beginning. Okay. They're an English metal band. This is Let's
get them down here.
That's what
I thought.
Get them playing at Club 85 in Hitchin.
Let's get them on for an interview.
We'll guarantee an audience of at least 10 people.
Come on, we do more than that at Club 85.
Add at least 1-0 on.
And we should say, I forgot to say at the start of the video, we are actually in Club 85 today, so big thank you to the team here for letting us use the venue. Right, I think we should score this in the traditional fashion that we do on this channel. So we have 4 ratings that we give albums here, which are bin it if it is a rubbish album and we think it should never have been made. Trade it if we think it's probably a good album but it's just not for us. We have stream it if it's something that we enjoyed but maybe not enough to convince us to buy it. And of course the final grading is buy it because we want to support the band and give them all our money. So, kicking it off, Andy, you've already said that you bought the CD, so I guess you're a buy it then.
Well, no, mine's rating 5. Pre-order it.
You're on pre-order, buy it.
Have you ordered the merch bundle with a T-shirt as well?
No, 4 is buy it, 5 is pre-order the CD because you're so impressed by it.
Pre-order it and join their Patreon. Okay, so in my case, it's a stream it. It's just not something I would, in the way that I listen to music, And we've talked about this before. I like to pick odd songs and mix things up and have random. You got to experience that in the car with me last week, much to your frustration. Skipping it every 15 seconds.
He listens to the
one.
intro of a song and then just skips the next one. He's telling me how good the song is,
That's
and then
pretty
doesn't see it.
next. So unfortunately for me, I don't see that happening with Grief Symposium.
That's why we listen to music now, isn't it? I'm afraid, and like you know, said, you know, is an album of 7 minutes, probably heading towards the hour mark. Too much for some people.
The thing is, when I was talking about those songs, well, before we get to your rating, I was actually saying the problem is every song that I had on my player, I really enjoy. But I was in that moment in time, I was looking for a certain song that was going to instill a certain feeling as I was driving, and I found it eventually. Much to your frustration again. It took me a while. But there you go. Right. So what's your rating, Kirk?
Yeah, I'm like Andy. I will also buy this album. I think it's. I'm really excited, especially considering it's a debut album, and we always look out for British, or in our case, English bands, don't we? So definite buy it. And I've resolved the dilemma with that closing track of 80 minutes, which is self-indulgent. But hey, I'm just going to treat that as if it's CD2, if I'm not in the mood for it, and just absolutely love those first 6 tracks.
Okay, well, there you go. So it's 2 buy it, 1 stream it, which means it's a buy it from the ADK channel. As always, if you like this video, please do like, share, subscribe, click the bell icon to stay notified for our daily updates, and we will see you on another video sometime very soon. Take care.